Ladies and gentlemen, it's a wonderful Sunday. Welcome back to the Hot Tag Podcast. If you notice, there's a little bit of difference in the dynamic duo. There is. Teddy's not here. He's got some stuff dealing with. He's dealing with in life. You know how that is. But with me, one half of the Any Given Fun Day podcast duo. You can find them wherever you get your podcast. Great, one of the best sports talk shows in all radio podcasts, whatever you got. They're simply one of the best. Ray, my man, how we doing?
I mean, there's not much better of an intro that I can ask for. You know what I mean? This is the guy right here. So I'm excited to be here. I'm just here as a fan. Disappointed I couldn't meet Teddy. I've been watching the past few weeks of what you guys have been doing. I've been loving it, and I'm really glad that you are inviting me on here today. So hopefully I can. I don't think I'll fill his shoes. You know what I mean? But hopefully I'll live up to a little bit of the expectation that you guys have on here.
Listen, Teddy brings a high standard, but I know you got the chops to bring it. Listen, he likes to get under my skin, and that's the thing. I don't know that you can do the way he does, but listen, that's not a problem. An easy Sunday, there's nothing wrong with that for me, okay? Because he was telling me this week that he was ready to get under my skin about Seth Rollins. I was like, buddy, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it, okay? So, with that being said, I mentioned his name. Let's just hop right into it. Seth Rollins had his first title defense this Monday against Damian Priest. Finn Balor was a part of it. Seth looked good. He beat Damian Priest. Nobody's really surprised about that. Did Damian Priest look really good and like he could legitimately contend for a world championship? Yes. I think they've been doing a good job of building him after he admittedly got snubbed at WrestleMania to the point where it was a meme all over the internet. It was just not something people were talking about. It was like now a legitimate thing on the internet. So good for Priest. I felt good about Seth's opening defense. The only thing I didn't like was that it was an open challenge. Kind of weird for a new title. I get it. It's a workman's title. That's how they want to do it. But Teddy brought it up to me. It's like, I don't know if that's the best way to establish a new championship like that. I get it. But it seems like it's not going to be an open challenge fest, which I agree to that extent if it's like a John Cena open challenge every week, like the U.S. title. It gets a little gimmicky and devalues it. I agree. But it seemed like this served a purpose, right? He put out the challenge. Damian lost, but then Finn stuck his nose in there like, hey, you beat me in the tournament, but we're not done here. Okay, so that's interesting. It seems like that was used to build up to a legitimate feud to continue to build this championship. Ray, how'd you feel about that match between Seth and Priest?
I really liked it. Damien comes out, and I feel like every time I watch him wrestle now, he does something that I never see in his repertoire the time before. That's what like that Hurricane Run off the top rope. I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
I was like, am I watching Damien Priest or am I watching Rey Mysterio? Like, I don't know which one it is. And then for the ending of it, I kind of figured that something was going to happen along the lines of Finn coming out and something like that. The one thing I didn't like about this is like I really have grown to like Damien Priest, and like you said, they're trying to build him up to be at that pay per view, maybe not main event, but title contendership. And I felt like they've done enough where he just had a banger with Bad Bunny on a pay per view that we haven't seen over the how many years has always been a great pay per view, right? And I think that the way that he's built himself up already was enough for him to even just get a shot at like Money in the Bank, which isn't a huge pay per view, but that should have set up, I think, the Finn storyline into SummerSlam. So I feel like it's a little bit early, you know what I mean, in the process of where they want to get to Seth with Finn, which would they might set up two championship matches against Finn. But there's so many wrinkles being thrown. It just seems like everybody's throwing out challenges to whether it's Sammy and KO or whether it's Seth Rollins. Like everybody who just wants a title shot right now, and things are madness. And this is really the first time that we've seen any wrinkle in Judgment Day. Like we haven't seen anything where there's arguments or things not going the right way. And then Priest was kind of like, "Yo, what are you doing out here? I told you to stay in the back." And then he ends up losing. And then Finn goes up after him after he loses and confronts Seth.
Yeah.
And doesn't do anything. So it was like, obviously, I just don't know where they're gonna go with this now. Do you think that they're gonna go like two title matches back to back, Money in the Bank, Finn versus Seth, or do you think they'll do something else? Because I just feel like the storylines are good. It's just like I just want them to connect a little bit more.
Yeah, that's the thing about and I've mentioned this before. We got put in such a weird spot with only one championship and only one guy holding all the gold. it's like, yes, you could build these other people in these other ways, but there was no one made to be a legitimate contender except for one person every 2 3 months. And it's hard to really develop that talent. So now you just got a bunch of guys, right? You have Seth Rollins and a bunch of guys that, like, oh, maybe I'd like to see, but there's KO, is a championship contender, but he's tag team champions, irrelevant, can't be put in that situation. And then you have Gunther, IC title, irrelevant. He's already the champion. He's not going to be involved in any Seth story. So it's kind of interesting, and it's a kind of weird situation. There's two names that really could really put Seth over the top that I'd like to see after this Finn thing. It'd be Drew and Bobby. But those are, again, long time stories, and I don't know what you do with Finn and Seth. To get back to the original point here, like, it's weird. It is weird throwing it out now, especially if you don't want it to be, if you want it to be a main thing at SummerSlam or a big piece of the puzzle. So it doesn't seem like that's going to be the route we take to SummerSlam. It seems like we get another shotgun, 3 week shotgun title defense for Seth at SummerSlam. Could it be Cody Rhodes?
I just don't think so. I really think that they've built this Brock story up, and every week
Mm-hmm.
he's coming out, and we've talked about it, right? Where it just feels like he's doing the same promo week after week. And I love Cody. I want to love Cody,
Yeah.
but I also want to see him wrestle somebody. Like, he wants to wrestle every week. He wants to
Yeah.
be at shows. And I know obviously he's got his arm and everything like that right now, but like, he wants to be out there doing something. And I feel like him doing solo promos against Brock Lesnar, it's just like it's the same thing week after week after week.
Yeah.
And it's like, when are we gonna get something fresh with Cody? Now I know it's been 2 matches, and sure, we might see a third, who knows. It's just like the route that WWE is taking with some of these storylines, like I just said, I'm struggling to find where they're going, and I'm not worried about it because Triple H, like we've said, and honestly, in this past couple of weeks, right, with the one thing that we've always talked about is the women's division and the women's booking. And with what we just saw on SmackDown this past week, right, with the call ups of NXT and the way he's handled NXT call ups has been way better. So I'm not worried about it at all. And just to throw things into the mix, we did have something with NXT, right? Braun Breaker at the end challenging Seth Rollins out of nowhere. It's like, I just don't know what's going to happen. Like, is Seth going to defend the title on Monday and then Tuesday, or is he not going to be there Monday and go Tuesday? Like, what's going to happen?
I don't know. I thought it was really cool when I saw Braun Breaker challenge him. Now, this, I don't think it's a great look if Seth Rollins brings the brand new World Heavyweight Championship down to NXT. I don't
I
think
agree.
that's a good look. Would I prefer Braun Breaker come to Monday Night Raw? Yes. I think it's time for him to be on the main roster. He lost to Carmelo
1,000%.
Hayes. His heel work is really good. I like him as a heel. It's time for him to be on the main roster. He's done everything he can with Carmelo. There's nobody at his level down there in NXT. Get him up here. I think Seth should respond, and if he's going to, and say, I'm not going down to NXT. Why don't you come
You
up
come to me.
where the big dogs play? Come to Monday Night Raw and show that you got what it takes. And then he takes the challenge on Monday. But I think if he shows up on Tuesday with that World Heavyweight title, while cool for NXT fans, bad for the title.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the one thing that I kind of wanted to happen as well, now that Gunther has come to Raw, I wish they put Priest, because the thing is with the Judgment Day is it feels like they all have to go after one person, right? Like, they can't have two separate storylines going in the same spot. But at the same time, you look at what the Bloodline has done, and why that's become so successful is because even though inside of itself of being usually around like one centric storyline of like Sammy KO, you threw Cody Rhodes into that mix and made it work, right? With
Yeah.
those three guys kind of, not really teaming up, but like having each other's backs at a certain point. And I wish with Judgment Day, they kept Finn on Seth and had Damian go after Gunther. Like, I felt like that would have been a good setup, and it might have been a good way because we know probably Gunther's going to keep the title until he breaks the record, right? That's probably what's going to happen.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, have like a 3 match build to get to that point where it's after he's already broken the ring. Have Priest take it. You know what I mean? Have Priest take the IC title and build him up that way. Because if he beats one of the more dominant, if not the most dominant, right wrestler, especially on Monday
Yeah,
Night Raw,
the
it's
most, I
gonna set
think.
him
Yeah.
up for it's gonna set him up for what they want him to be.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. I think Gunther, Teddy's a big Gunther guy. I think as
I love
soon
him.
as he drops this IC belt, it's to the moon with Gunther. I don't know how it gets there. I think the most logical way is Drew comes back. Seth kind of skirts away from him. He maybe wins the Royal Rumble, beats Seth. No, I don't think Rumble would be the best way to do it. But he beats Seth somewhere along the way, and then you get Gunther versus Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania, and Gunther wins the World Heavyweight title. Now, that would be a night one main event.
Yeah, that would be a banger. I mean, we saw what those two and Sheamus did at this past WrestleMania, and
Mm-hmm.
how good that match was. And even just like you can tell what guys are going to be an amazing match with Gunther. Like we had KO come out of nowhere and be like, "Let's go to the ring, come on, let's go." And I'm like, "This is happening right now." I'm like Gunther versus KO. Like I know KO might not get the win just to continue the storyline and
Yeah.
let Imperium try and continue the feud.
Yeah.
But like that match was insane.
Banger
That was
for
a
no
main
reason.
event match that we got in like hour one or hour two,
Yep.
right? Of the night. And so I think WWE is starting to realize, like all of these guys who are fighters, fighters, fighters. And don't get me wrong, like Ali has been proving himself. And I wish that, I get where they're going with Santos Escobar. You need to build, or you're building him up under Rey Mysterio, and Ali's just kind of left out in the dust. But like Ali has been performing very, very well and surprising
Yep.
me with the amount of or with the matches that he's gotten and the opportunity that he's gotten. And so I hope that in the future that we'll get to see a little bit more of him. But as far as everything else goes, it feels like a mess. Like you just you talk about one thing and it has to connect to something else right now.
It's weird, and things are in flux right now. And then you mentioned Judgment Day, and you mentioned Sammy and KO and Cody Rhodes and the Bloodline, and you
Mm.
mentioned the Judgment Day. Now the Judgment Day's caught up with Cody Rhodes at the same time.
That's right.
Weird.
I forgot about that part. I
Dominic
forgot
bitch
about that.
slapped Cody Rhodes on Monday Night Raw. I'm all here for it because immediately he got behind Rhea Ripley, and I thought that was hilarious. And all I could think of was like 2002, 2003 Eddie Guerrero. That's when he was with China. That's the only thing I could think of at that time.
Dude, they've done a amazing job of finding people's roles in this
Yes.
company, right? Like Dom is one of them. Austin Theory is another one that
Mm-hmm.
they've just like perfected, right? And now it's kind of an interesting thing because you just brought up the bloodline
Mm-hmm.
to see what they're gonna do with Jimmy and Jay, right? Like if Jimmy, or I'm sorry, if Jay is the one who starts to go for titles or switches on them and then just choose like the way that SmackDown ended, it just makes me think that they might both go on their own and like everything might just be like split apart, which would be I think a very interesting direction for it to go because we've never seen Jimmy and Jay both be solo competitors, right? Like that's something we haven't seen really in their time in WWE. They've always been a tag team,
Yeah.
and I feel like they believe that Jay can be, but I don't know how they feel about Jimmy. So it's like where does everyone fall when all of this mess settles?
I think we, as fans, mostly know how we feel about Jimmy. And how we feel about Jimmy is that he's Jay's brother. Yeah. Listen, I think it's interesting right now. Let's just hop right into that topic. Jimmy ended up kicking Jay in the face on Friday, costing Jay the United States Championship, which was gifted to him by Paul Heyman earlier in the night. Also, Pretty Deadly got involved, and I am enjoying the chemistry between Austin Theory and Pretty Deadly. I think Pretty
So
Deadly
random, it's
is
so good.
it's so funny. They just work very well together, and I think it's a good way to use more talent because Pretty Deadly. They again, that's another team. When they were in NXT, they had nothing left to do. So come up here, make a little noise, get interjected into some matches, and be fun. Be funny. You don't always have to come to the main roster and start being the tough guy trying to kill everybody. Another good example of that, Grayson Waller. We haven't had a match with him yet, but I want to see Grayson Waller every Friday night.
100%. I don't disagree. Like I said earlier, Triple H has done an amazing job so far with everybody in NXT that they've brought up so far. And to put Pretty Deadly, like you put Pretty Deadly into a story like Showtime, put them on TV in a main event showcase with the Bloodline and Austin Theory, a United States champion,
Yeah,
who's been, who he loves to say it, beat John Cena at WrestleMania,
he did do
right?
that.
Like, so it's that's the ultimate that you can do. That's the best thing that you can do for them. Showcase who they are, and you're even though they get beat or whatever happens to them, they're getting screen time.
Yes.
That's a positive for them and where they're going to go with their future, right? Because we saw them even earlier on in the show talking to KO, talking to Sami Zayn. We saw, like the Brawling Brutes. Like, there's a lot of different ways and a lot of good things going on in WWE right now. Like, I feel like there's a lot. I don't want to say a mid card talent, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's not
I know what you mean.
like a lot of it. Yeah, like a lot of these guys, you don't want to sit there and be like, oh yeah, they could go after and dethrone Roman Reigns. Like, there's probably 4 or 5 guys that we look at right now in WWE in total that we would even want to see that happen to.
Right. I mean, the mid card is important. I don't care what anybody says because the main event is maximum 45 minutes with entrance. You have 3 other hours to fill. If the rest of that sucks and your mid card sucks, you don't have a show. People aren't sticking around for the main event. Or maybe they just tune in for the main event and that's it. Okay? But I think you're right. I think this is the best utilization of talent we've seen since the early 2000s. Since the I sound biased because it's the era I grew up in, but the ruthless aggression era had such a diverse pool of talent that was used so well, and the brand split pay-per-views allowed for those mid-cards to be developed. Why did we care about Rey Mysterio, Edge, Jeff Hardy, John Cena, Brock Lesnar before he blew up? Was because of those mid-card spots, and we got somebody like the Doctor of Thugonomics, who was just making his start, beat the Big Show for the United States Championship on a SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view. I don't know that happens on a weekly show during the PG era. I don't know that happens. So you don't really care about those new guys, and then you look around, it's like, why did John Cena win so many world titles in that period of time? Why did Triple H? Why did Randy Orton? It's because Vince didn't know how to develop new people. He just didn't. Unless you fit his mold of the super good bad guy or the big tough good guy that everybody, like the Superman hero, everyone wants to jump on your back, he didn't know what to do with you. He just did it. And Triple H, he is so creative. And I think he's done this multiple times. DX, Evolution. He knows how to use talent. He brought Ric Flair out of obscurity in the early 2000s. He was a shell of himself. Evolution comes together a couple months in. It's the Nature Boy all over again. It's like he never left. We are seeing the fruits of the labor, and it's why I will always have Triple H on my Mount Rushmore of WWE, because his footprints will be lasted forever from the mid 90s until he stops doing creative now. It's unbelievable the effect this man has had, and it's an amazing time to be a wrestling fan. This Bloodline storyline is cinema. This could be a movie.
Every week it is. It just continues to, when you think that it's going to go one way or the story's going to go in one direction, it just takes a hard left. Like, I just don't know what to think. I have one idea going into each show every week,
Yeah.
and then a different outcome happens. And I'm like, that's not how I thought it was going to go, right? Like,
No.
and now we have to think about, right, because JEY is going to have to make that decision next week, and we have to see really what everything happens. And that's the one thing is, like, the Bloodline is doing so well right now, and I think that a lot of these other, like, factions are probably the best thing in the WWE right now. We haven't seen this many good factions in a very long time. Like, we have a few of them, and the one thing that does feel like it's kind of like thrown in there piece by piece by piece, and you're like, it feels like they'll give guys some airtime, and then they'll go away for like 2 weeks, and then they're like bringing them back like they didn't leave at all. Like, Riddle comes out of nowhere, and it's like, where's he been? Like he showed up for that one main event to help KO and Sammy, and then like we haven't really seen him since. Like we saw him for the Battle Royale, right? And that was pretty much it.
It's interesting because it seemed like they were gonna throw him in with Gunther, but now Gunther
Yeah,
and Imperium are tied up with KO and Sammy, but Riddle's not with them anymore. It's a really weird situation, and I think it's week by week they're trying to gauge how people feel because I think people, specifically Riddle, are still kind of on the fence about him. They don't like his look. They don't like his gimmick and his attitude. And by attitude, I mean like he's too loosey goosey, carefree kind of deal. They don't. A lot of people don't like that he doesn't wear shoes. He ditched the trunks for just straight up, or the fight shorts for straight up trunks. It's weird, man. And I was a big Riddle fan when he was with Randy Orton. That RK Bro stuff was phenomenal.
yeah,
But now I'm like with Riddle, unless it's a specific storyline where I think him and Gunther would be very funny. The contrast of personalities would be funny for them to go back for a month. But again, that's a B pay-per-view. Like I'd like to see like Extreme Rules where Gunther just beats the hell out of Riddle after a while. Like I could see something like that, but realistically, Riddle's just going to be a guy. Um, and I think they're trying to gauge who they want to push and who's just a guy. Like Mustafa Ali might get a push at some point because he's been doing really well. Riddle's kind of turning into just a guy, sadly. Shinsuke is just a guy again. He's been winning, but
yeah.
he's just a guy still. Dolph Ziggler is just a guy. You don't only see him now and again. Somebody that's not being pushed towards titles or anything, but keeps getting TV time, and we've talked about this, keeps impressing me week after week. The Miz since WrestleMania.
Yes, yeah, 100%. The Miz has been, went from getting basically squash matches every week to making the most, and I feel like building himself back up
Mm-hmm.
to prove to WWE that he's not done. Like he maybe not world titles or anything like that, but I feel like the stronghold right now, like our top right now is so good. Usually it was like, okay, the mid card guys would all be kind of fighting with the US title, the IC title, and now it's like those guys are we're in S tier for Roman, and Seth, right? And then those other guys that are US with Gunther and Theory, if not arguably are right there at S, are just a smidge below them.
Yeah.
And all of these other guys kind of fall into that A B tier, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest thing and the biggest question mark of how they're going to get these titles off of these guys. That's just where we need to see, because obviously you want to have a guy that looks like he can go out and beat Gunther, go out and beat Austin Theory, because you're building these guys up so highly and giving them these touted matches that it's like, well, hold on a second. Like, I get what you're trying to do, but these guys aren't world title like holders. We need to like slow it down, because obviously you look at a match with Gunther and Ali had a great match
Mm-hmm.
at Night of Champions. Don't get me wrong, but was there ever a second where you were like, he's gonna win this match? No. Even when he if he hits the 450, it's like no. That's the one thing I think that Triple H I don't even say do a better job of, just needs to keep an eye on, right? Just with how well he's promoting these quote unquote mid card titles that aren't the best titles that you can have technically in WWE.
Well, that was one of Teddy's arguments, right? That the IC title looks stronger right now than the World Heavyweight Championship, and I said, "Pump the brakes, buddy. It's less than 3 weeks old." But Gunther is that dominant, and it is the man. It is not the title. It is Gunther that's making that title look that good. Something I've been thinking about: why not have Dominic Mysterio win Money in the Bank and steal it from Gunther? Why not? I think that would be hilarious. It would launch
Yeah.
Gunther towards the babyface, and maybe it would. I think it would put him in world title contention because it'd be an easy, clean way to protect Gunther because you're not burying him if Dominic steals it from him after he had a big title match against, like, say, Sheamus or freaking Drew when he comes back or whoever. Because people want to love Imperium and Gunther. They're like you only hear boos when they do something specific to someone they like. Otherwise, it's cheers for Gunther and Imperium.
That was something that we kind of realized when we were there, right? Like Gunther's starting to not break character, but he's realizing that because of how good he is,
People,
people are starting to like him. They're
yep.
starting to cheer for him, and he's cracking a smile walking down to the ring every once in a while when his guys are doing the just talking in general.
Yeah.
The one thing is I don't know if they can get the other two to go over with Gunther. But do you think that they'll ever stop being Imperium? Like I feel like if they, I'm sorry, I don't want to, Vinci and what's the other one?
Kaiser.
Ludwig Kaiser, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So those two guys, like, if they weren't a part of Imperium, what would they be? Like, yeah, I don't know if they would even be relevant in tag team wrestling. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be, it would be an interesting way to do it, because if they want to push Gunther to be a quote unquote baby face, I don't think that they would do it with Imperium, and I don't know if Imperium has reached its peak yet, to say, because I feel like they're wanting to give these guys title opportunities, and they've been pushing this mantra against KO and against Sammy. But KO and Sammy are literally willing to fight anybody, and
Yeah.
that's been a fun thing to see on Monday, like on Monday and on Friday. You're seeing them every week because they are unified tag team champions. So we're not just expecting one thing to come out of each week, but they're willing to do it every single week.
Yeah, it's the tag team division's interesting
It's
because
very good right now, from to me at least. I think it's very fun to watch.
you we have a gauntlet match next Friday, and that's only SmackDown teams.
For a chance at the titles?
Yeah, that's what that whole argument was about backstage. Was all those teams wanted a shot at the titles, and
Right,
Pierce
right, right.
was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, we're gonna have a gauntlet match. Last team standing wins." So it's pretty
Okay.
deadly. Brawling Brutes, Street Profits, uh, Imperium. Who else am I missing? Street Profits, Brawling Brutes, Imperium, Pretty Deadly. Why am I? Were the Viking Raiders involved? No,
Into sheer.
they're Raw.
No, I know, but wait. Imperium's not SmackDown.
Maybe they weren't in there. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
probably just the four that you said, and not Imperium.
I have to look this up now. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting because what are you gonna do with the tag titles? Are you gonna separate them, or are you gonna keep them together? I don't really know what the goal is there.
Maybe they would do that, and then because, like we said, the tag titles or the tag division right now is very good, in my
Yeah,
opinion. I,
yeah,
I really think that there's a lot of solid tag teams that are worthy of holding gold. The problem is they're binded up with Sammy and KO. And I think you could keep Sammy and KO just on Raw, right? Just give away the, not give away, but have them lose a SmackDown, or have them defend both one night, have them defend Raw first, win their Raw match, have them defend, have it at SummerSlam. Sure, right? Like have them defend their Raw ones early, and then have their SmackDown ones be the later one, maybe the second one to the main event of the night, depending on if Roman's there or not, and if Roman and Seth are there, and then just have them lose, and then have it be separated. Because right now, I think they're trying. Like I just said, they're pushing into sheer. Obviously Strowman's out for a while, so we're not
yeah.
going to see him and Ricochet together. It's been Ricochet by himself recently.
Mhm.
But like you said, pretty deadly. I mean, Brawling Brutes, even though I wouldn't say that they're up there as far as the likability factor with the fans. I think that they're still likable, but it is when they're with Sheamus,
Yeah.
right? And people might not see them as tag team champions material, but they have great matches every time they go out there. They're fun to watch. I like watching Butch, and you know the way they do things is very good, and I feel like the tag team titles need that separation right now.
I agree. I think the best thing for the division, because it is so heavy right now, you need to split those things out. And it's weird because it seems like they're only defending, it's like they're defending it separately. There was one time where they're like, oh, only challenging for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. I don't know if that's what this is. I don't know if this Battle Royal is like for the SmackDown Tag titles or for the Unified titles. It's weird what
Well,
they're
the thing
doing.
is it's just like we've done it with everything else, right? Like we forced Roman. I mean, he's got
Mhm.
3 belts now, technically, but like,
Oh yeah.
at least it's we have a Raw champion and we have a SmackDown champion. Like, if you need to unify them together and say, hey, guess what, Sam and KO, you're just getting because you're on Raw, we're gonna unify them, and you don't have to lose, and we'll just have an open challenge. That's what they should have done. Is in that sense, like they should have had like Triple H pop up out of nowhere, right, on Friday Night SmackDown and be like, look, I get you guys are all here on Friday, and we don't have the like they're not there as much as they are on Raw, obviously because they're on Raw.
Right.
And you want this brand split, do it. If you want to actually go for it, do the draft and make all this stuff feel like it's brand based. Just do it. Just pull the trigger. It just feels like they're kind of like inching around it almost.
It's funny. When we were at the show on Monday Night Raw, AJ Styles was there, and immediately I thought, okay,
Yeah.
no brand split. And then they'd go to a cutscene. Adam Pearce is on the phone. I know we're supposed to have a brand split, but I'm like, you guys are so fucking annoying with some of this shit you do. At least they lazily made an attempt at it. I get it, but like, I don't know. I think Teddy and I have discussed this. I think they need to go for these intermediate pay-per-views. So you leave alone WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. Hopefully that stays War Games, and WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and the Royal
Royal
Rumble.
Rumble.
And Money in the Bank would be the fifth because you need that to be both. Every other pay-per-view in between those should be one brand or the other. And I just think that's the best way to do it because you're giving people, you're giving talent a little bit of time off. It's a day, but tell me a wrestler that wouldn't take a day. And you're letting stories develop longer. So now you're waiting 2 months to see this big championship payoff match instead of it being shotgunned in 3 weeks, and you're kind of just like, what? Okay, we have Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. I'm not complaining, but what the fuck? I feel like that happens a lot.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing with that is too, it's like we'll just get these, we'll just get random matches,
Right.
and it's like, where are these coming from? Why? And I'm like, I'd be intrigued to see a storyline between these guys, but it's hard to have storylines without titles now. So that's the one thing that I feel like it could lack, right? Is because, like we just said, the titles are tied up with 2 people for the tag titles. We finally have the world champion, and Roman as the WWE Undisputed Champion, and then IC and US. So it's like, and then obviously the meme with Asuka, obviously, that just thing of titles, basically releasing the same title they gave Roman a week ago, same on the same show. It's just a meme at this point, but um, I just feel like a lot of it is they could do it, but they're saying one thing and then doing another as far as the brand split goes.
Yeah. Well, one of my biggest pet peeves was that the Raw Women's Champion was on SmackDown. They
Yes.
corrected that finally, but they gave me the finger as they did it. They said, fine, there won't be a Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown anymore, but fuck you, she's going to be the undisputed champion even though Rhea's on Raw. And she's not undisputed because there's another Women's World Champion, which calls into question Asuka's title reign as the only women's champion, which, contradicts the definition of undisputed. Guess we didn't check that out when we put it on the belt. Guess we didn't look into that. I don't know what's going on. Like, the Roman thing made sense. He had 2 belts, undisputed champion, fine. Why would you wait until after there was another world heavyweight champion? Don't know. Why would you give Asuka a unified champion or undisputed championship belt when Rhea's on Raw and clearly the more favored and over champion? She's one of the most popular champions in WWE right now. So that makes me think that she's going to get another title and maybe she's the first women's intercontinental champion or something like that. God, I hope so. Because she's the SmackDown Women's Champion on Monday Night Raw right now. And that drives me up a wall.
Well, here's the thing: is that this could be. I don't want to say an issue, but I feel like we saw what they just did with Roman, and that was really the only way to introduce a new title was to give it undisputed claims. Because what else are you going to call it? The women's title, and then have 2 women's titles,
Yeah.
right? Like, that instead of them just swapping belts, which obviously would be kind of weird.
They did that before and it was weird, but it was better than, well, now that they have the new belt, but like it's so weird. I don't know. And this has been a criticism of Triple H's reign, has been his booking and decision making for the women's division. A lot of it seems haphazard, a lot of it seems forced, and a lot of it seems like if we don't get to it, that's okay. And it's, to me, that was only reinforced when Bianca was given a title rematch, and then Charlotte Flair comes out of nowhere and demands a rematch. And that's just something I've said for a while. I don't like you haven't been around and all of a sudden you're in a title match. I don't like that. You should at least beat somebody before you say that.
Or at least have, dude, they could have made it so much better. They could have had Charlotte versus Bianca
Yeah.
as a number one contender. Like, you don't have to, obviously, you don't have to build up Charlotte, but
Right.
Bianca, like, don't just like throw Bianca to the side. Now it's like, well, what's her role? What is she going to do? And you don't know what's going to happen because she was so over with, like we saw, like, you know, it was one of those John Cena effects, is the type that Bianca's had,
Yeah.
and we haven't really seen her fight at the mid card level yet. But obviously, I feel like what they're going to try and do, because they went undisputed, they'll just make Rhea the women's heavyweight champion or something like that, and make it like, you know what I mean. So we have the world heavyweight champion on Raw and the women's heavyweight champion on Raw, and then you have the two undisputed titles on SmackDown, which doesn't make any fucking sense because Raw's the more popular show.
Like, it doesn't make any
That's what
sense.
sounds like it's going to happen, most likely.
I've seen pictures and people are trolling so fucking hard because they hate these title belt decisions that it was literally the World Heavyweight Championship on a white strap, and they're like, Rhea's new belt, what do you guys think? I'm like, fuck you. Like, I don't want that so bad, but I could see it. I could see it happening. And, like, I just hope they do something cool with Rhea because I don't think there's anybody carrying the women's division like she is right now. Obviously,
Yeah.
you have Charlotte Flair. Obviously, everybody loves Bianca, but, like, she is so polarizing. People love her, and then on the other side, it's not you love her or you don't really care. You love her or you're a hater. Like, she is actually, like, she has haters. She has people that do not like her because, you know, she's a bad bitch. She does what she does. But, I mean, it's, to me, she needs to have, I don't know, she needs to have the cooler, more prestigious championship because, fine, put it this way. She needs to be the future of your company, not 40-plus-year-old Asuka. I love Asuka, by the way, but Rhea needs to be the future, and she needs to be the focal point of the women's division.
Well, and it was also like Rhea won the title at Mania
From
with,
Charlotte.
from Charlotte, and then at the same time, it was like, okay, if we saw that, like Asuka, then this is her time. She's been built up as much as she can. There's no other place for her to go.
Right.
And then you set up maybe a trilogy of that. You know what I mean? Going forward with Asuka and Bianca, and then she loses, and then wins, and comes out of nowhere, and is back, and then wins, and then if champions, and it's like, what? It's like what? And then you're calling her undisputed. It's kind of a mess right now. I get why what you're saying what you're saying, but it went about the wrong way, and it got to the same point that we should have gotten to. It's just kind of flip flopped.
Yeah, I think Bianca was so over at WrestleMania she needed to win. I get that, but was it the best for the story? Probably not. I think it would have meant a lot more for Bianca's career if she took that loss to Asuka at WrestleMania and then won it back from her and then did another long run. But a lot of things I'm seeing online is now that Bianca's getting snubbed, we might see a heel turn for her.
You think that would be good for her though? Like
I
couldn't even
do
see
long term, yeah.
I couldn't even see her being a heel. I mean, I guess I couldn't see Asuka being a heel just because she was so much liked, but and she's done a great role in it. But like I just said, there's so many little girls out there that want to be like Bianca Belair.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the John Cena effect. It really is. Like you never needed him to be. He never technically was a heel. People just got fed up with how over he was all the time,
Yeah.
and certain cities just hated him. And I feel like that's kind of the route you're gonna have to take with Bianca, because we even heard Asuka chants and they're champions, right? Like some people were just sick and tired of her being the Raw Women's champion
Yeah.
for that X amount of time, and that's why it was like, I know it might have been obviously look at WrestleMania losses and wins in people's career, and you say that those are probably more influential on the career. Look at Finn. Finn lost to Edge. Who the fuck is Edge? Right? No one cares. That's the one thing. It's like I don't feel like anyone's going to look back and be like, "Ah, Finn lost that. That's going to be a downturn or a bad part in his career." You know what I mean?
Literally,
So that
no one cares. It was a fun match. No one cares that he lost. It was just a great
right.
match.
But that's what that's my point.
Yeah.
Is because if you were to have Bianca lose at Mania, I don't think it would have just made it better for the WWE universe to be like,
Right.
okay, we finally have a new champion.
Right.
That's what people want to see. We can have these long title reigns for certain people, but like me and you talked about, it was like stranglehold on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't think Roman's ever gonna lose the belt whenever he defends his titles. You don't think Gunther's gonna lose the belt whenever he defends his title. When the hell is Austin Theory gonna give up his belt? And now you have Seth, who's a fresh champion, and it's like, well, now we need to at least have the belt on him because he hasn't had one in so long,
Yeah.
right? Or it's the route of have him lose, win, lose, win, lose, win type thing, and say that he's a 10, 12, 15-time world heavyweight champion type thing, right? They're going to go one of two ways, but it feels like the way that WWE is going now is instead of having constant title changes and saying you're a 15-time or this, it's you have the longest reign, you have the longest tenure with that XYZ title.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I like that as much as I do with feeling like you're having matches at pay-per-views that you can be like, okay, this might happen tonight.
That's the thing with that too, right? Is there's a middle ground because oh well. Title changes all the time. Luna wanted to say hi.
My God.
Title changes all the time. It is weird and it devalues that world championship just a little bit. The more it changes hands, it seems a little more pliable, more flimsy. But there is something to be said about the excitement of, I don't know, this could change tonight. But what you said is right. And WWE has openly come out and said they want to modernize all their title reign records. So that's what they're doing right now. They're reestablishing reigns. So that's why I say to Teddy that I think Seth's reign has to be at least 6 months. Because with a brand new title, it can't be in that in flux like that so many times unless you're giving it to a guy like Gunther who's going to run with it for a while. Because this is a brand new title. It needs to be established by somebody.
So you want him to hold it at least until
Probably the Rumble. I could see him dropping it at the Royal Rumble.
I guess I could see that as well, but I feel like he might have to do it at like War Games or something, and then participate in the Rumble, because I feel like the world heavyweight champion isn't ever going to be, at least right now with the way things are going. Roman's at the top. Roman's the top of the top in WWE, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And he's going to be the main event of every WrestleMania until he's not there.
Yeah.
Point blank. Period. And I think that Seth is up there along with Cody, along with, I mean, arguably Finn, right? I think he could be at least go towards that reign. So it's kind of, or maybe with Finn we'll just stay with the World Heavyweight Championship. But I think it'd be fun to have like maybe Seth, like Final Four be like Seth, Gunther, Cody, and give me someone else. Maybe like Theory if he drops the title, and one of those four goes to face Roman at Mania.
This is another thing I've seen is if when Seth drops his title, we get a triple threat at WrestleMania. Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns. And I think that would be an easier way to get that belt off of Roman. Now Seth could cause Roman the title. Who knows? Or maybe Roman, tries to get in the way of Seth, gets him out of the ring, Cody hits him with a Cody cutter. Boom. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like I have an unpopular opinion to the fact that a lot of people want Jay to be the one to take the belts off Roman.
I get it.
And I get it. I get it as far as storyline goes, but with how dominant and the people that Roman Reigns have beaten, Jay is nowhere near the champion that Roman is, and I think he is deserving of being, called main event Jey Uso. And the only way that he's gonna be anywhere near close to Roman is if he concedes this Friday and becomes the right hand man, and the next head, to be the next head of the table. Right? That's the only way I could see it happening. And then when Roman is like, okay, I've been at the top X amount of years. I mean, I just don't know how they're gonna do that though. Like, I don't feel like Roman's ever gonna be a mid card guy ever again in his career.
Well,
You
that's
know what I
the
mean? So
thing.
that,
Like, once Roman drops these titles, I think he's gone for a year plus. Because I think we
really,
just I think we just need a cleanse from him after he loses, and I think you put it right on the head. Because he loses the titles, what else are you gonna do with him? You can't put the tribal chief on the Intercontinental Championship. You can't do that. It needs to
that,
get to a different point that when he comes back, we all lose our shit because oh, it's Roman. Like that needs to happen after he drops these titles. He can't come right back and be a bad guy heel with no title. That's gonna be fucking pointless.
I agree. I agree with that point, but also I really don't know because a lot of people want him to drop the belts. I don't know if I do. I really don't. Just because look at what he's given us in just this past year in Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, right? Like Cody is so over. Think about the people that he's made with with everything that they've had as far as storylines go, right? And now I feel like even with Jimmy J, even bringing Solo into the mix, think about how good and how dominant people know Solo Sikoa is. Coming up from NXT, going straight into this, and like Roman's scared. Roman looks scared of Solo at times,
Yeah,
and so with the way that Roman is able to build up people, I think that he still needs to be the champion. However, if we're going to continue this bloodline storyline, I wish they got the titles off him sooner and then continued the bloodline storyline because that would have made sense,
right.
right? But then obviously the title not having the titles with Roman and the bloodline don't make that much sense. I get it. It's a tough middle ground to kind of um, you know go with, and you have to basically just pick one side of where you're going. And I don't know. I just love the way that we wouldn't have gotten Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to where they are now without Roman Reigns, and we can't dismiss that.
I agree. I thought the time to do it was WrestleMania. I thought it made the most sense. You had Jimmy and Jay lose night one to Sammy and KO. First pillar, bloodline knockdown. And then night two, the Usos try to help but end up costing Roman. Cody gets the titles. And then you can go all the way from WrestleMania to SummerSlam riding the family drama of the bloodline. And everybody's interested in it now because it's like, you costed me the one thing I cared about more than anything in this world, and now I am going to beat your ass for it. And then you have the Usos saying, fuck you, you treat us like shit for 2 years. We were the ones that helped you keep these titles so long, and now you're blaming us. And then you have that for until SummerSlam. I thought that would have made the most sense. Fuck me, I don't get paid to book it.
Neither do I. I'm just speaking how the fuck I feel.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though. This might be one of the tougher questions you answer, and actually, it might be an easier question than I think. But would you rather have had the storyline of the Bloodline going the way that it is right now, having Cody lose at Mania, and I'm sorry, yeah, having Cody lose at Mania and the Usos lose at Mania, and Sammy and KO become title champions, or would you have rather had this storyline with the way the WWE would have went? Probably Cody wins, Jay and Jimmy beat Sammy and KO, and there's trouble at the top. There's trouble with being the tribal chief, right? That's a way to do it as well. And then you have Cody as champion, but KO and Sammy aren't champion. And then you have maybe Roman and Solo go after Usos for the tag titles and build this bloodline storyline the same way up to SummerSlam. And then you give other people the reign at the top. I guess which way would you have rather have gone? Hypothetically, obviously.
I think how you put it earlier is how I'm gonna ride it out. I think Roman needs to be the guy. Like Dude,
Yeah.
I just think not that he couldn't, because I think if it went the way I said, where he lost at WrestleMania, then you did the family stuff without titles, I think that situation is fine. But I think if you have the Usos with titles and Roman without, like, yes, I get the power struggle dynamic, but to me, that's just like, in my head, my first thought is, well, Roman's going to beat the shit out of them, and it doesn't matter what happens anyway. I don't think it's as interesting if the titles are involved. I think if it's just straight up a blood feud with no titles involved, and they're just hating each other, beating each other up for the sake of hating each other, I think that's a lot more interesting, as opposed to like the complex, the I need to be the top dog kind of tribal chief. But I guess character wise, that would make the most sense. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's just the way that I think that they would have went with it. And then the other thing is too, like, do you think that if Cody never lost to Roman and say they introduced the title, um, right after Royal Rumble, like the World Heavyweight Championship, and then made it like Seth Rollins or somebody versus Cody at Mania, hypothetically, like, do you think that would have given it more like pedigree? I guess is the word I want to use. Like, do you think it would have been instead of and it not have felt like, because now it just feels like Cody can't go after the World Heavyweight Championship, right? It's just going to diminish him coming over to WWE and quote unquote finishing the story like that. That's just and now how I feel about it, and I feel like a lot of other people feel the way that same way is Cody Rhodes cannot win the World Heavyweight Championship.
I agree. And I think that is the reason why maybe you push him towards it. Because again, you want to establish Seth Rollins in that title, right? Seth Rollins lost to Cody Rhodes 3 times. But Cody Rhodes wants a world heavyweight champion. He wants a world title. That's what he came here for. He wants to win. Seth finally gets the win over Cody, because if Seth loses to Cody 4 times, Seth is done for a while, in my opinion. But you put Seth over. Seth wins. Cody, more hard times, because it seems like that's what they're doing. They're giving Cody Rhodes, his American dream, Dusty Rhodes, hard times right now. He's going through it. He broke his arm trying to fight the good fight, like an idiot, quote unquote. Got his arm broken in a match, wasn't able to continue. Ref called it. He lost. And now he's on this spiral. And, like, it seems like his destiny is still the Undisputed Championship. But now we're sitting here like, well, shit, how is he going to get there? He keeps losing. He's on Raw. What's going to happen? And I think there's not many people for Seth to beat right now that are legitimate, and I think that is the biggest piece he can beat. But again, Brock Lesnar of it all, it seems like that's going to come to a head after SummerSlam, so it'd have to wait till after then anyway.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see where they're gonna go with that storyline and how they're gonna, I guess, build Cody back up because he's gonna be probably just put in the ground. I can't see him. I mean, do you see him beating Brock if they have a third match? Especially at SummerSlam, I guess it would make the most sense because what does a win do for Brock at this point? Like Brock, I feel like is just pushing people to overcome the beast, so it looks like he can beat anybody. And we know that Brock's beaten Roman plenty of times, and that would make the most sense. But then it feels like, again, is the storyline too early?
Yes.
Is it too early? Because then it feels like Cody will go to Rumble and face Roman, and then maybe lose at Rumble, right? And then have to wait till WrestleMania. That just doesn't sound right. That's way too long of a storyline for Cody and Roman to go back at it again. It would only make sense if Cody goes to the Rumble, wins again, does the same thing over, and then this time beats him. That's the only way I could see it happening. Because what storyline does Cody go to after Brock Lesnar?
I was just thinking that. Because if Cody beats Brock Lesnar, there's nothing for him to do except for go after the World Heavyweight Championship. No, because he can't. Like, how is he going to get over to SmackDown? Like, unless they're going to half-ass like the brand split shit again. But like, I think if he beats Brock Lesnar, the only logical path is to go after Seth Rollins. But if he loses to Brock Lesnar, maybe he's away for a few weeks to a month, and then he gets, a kick up towards the Royal Rumble, and we go down that road again. I don't know. It's very interesting to see what they do with Cody Rhodes. I don't think him beating Brock Lesnar is a bad thing, period. I think it's a bad thing right now. Because I think you're right, it's too early. Because if he beats a guy like Brock Lesnar right now, we're all thinking, okay, he needs to be world champion now because he just beat Brock fucking Lesnar, who's one of the
Well, that's
most
the
dominant
thing.
WWE superstars of all time.
If he beats Brock Lesnar and then goes to face Seth, and you're saying Seth can't lose, and he loses to Seth, where does that put him? What are they going to do with him after that? Especially, it's like you already had him beat the quote unquote top of the top, or the most insane athlete in WWE's history, but now you're going to have him lose to a guy in Seth Rollins, who I get you want to make the title look better and everything like that, but then for Cody's story, as far as that goes, it just feels like you're kind of left with, okay, now what? Now he has to go through it all. And I guess, okay, so here's the one thing I just kind of thought of in my head as I was saying. Cody goes into the Rumble at 1 and wins the Rumble,
I mean, that
and then
would
goes and
be
then goes to face Roman.
that
That
would
would
be
be
the
the way to
only
build him
thing.
back up.
And everyone's talking about like, oh, it's Cody Rhodes' hard times, but like, I don't want to sound like a dick, but I don't care. I don't care. Like, he's just going to keep losing. Like, that's going to make me not care about him more. And it's like, if he comes out after getting his ass kicked for months and wins the Royal Rumble, I'm going to be like, in my mind, he needs to lose to Brock, go away for a little while, get really freaking hot going into the Rumble. Because, like, that's the thing with having a guy lose so much. It's a very, very dangerous game to play because now you worry about people losing interest. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say people don't care about Cody Rhodes because they do. He's still one of the most popular people in the company. But if he keeps losing, how are we going to take him as a legitimate world champion? And I know you look at Seth Rollins, and for 2-3 years he'd been booked into the ground, but he had almost a year of winning straight, and people forget about that. He started winning what at the Royal Rumble, uh, in 2020.
Who?
Yeah, he started winning then. And now he's the world heavyweight champion, and it's not. I don't know. I'm just I don't dislike Cody Rhodes, but I don't necessarily care about anything he's doing right now. I can't tell you that I overly care about the Brock Lesnar story right now either. The end of it should be interesting because they're talking about using a match type that they have not used in WWE either ever or in a very long time.
Oh,
From
we
what
all
I
know how
hear,
that usually ends up.
I'm hearing it could be a bull rope match or a 3 stages of hell are the things I'm hearing.
Okay. I, got-
So
I could get behind that. I think it would be a interesting way to end their feud, and then who knows though? Like we've talked about. I feel like, or you guys have talked about. I feel like Brock's just done going after titles, right? Like it just feels like that's
yeah,
not
unless
what
they
he
need
wants to
him
do.
really
He's
bad.
what?
Unless they need him like really, really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, which right now I don't think they do. I
No.
think that and the thing is he's been so difficult to make a heel because he's like people just love to see Brock Lesnar beat the hell out of people.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's just a fun thing to watch. So Brock is really putting it to this company though and saying I don't know, it's so weird because he flipped off the cameras with Cody, and then it was like now it's like realistically you're feeling like okay, he wants to build Cody up. He enjoys working with Cody Rhodes.
He
So
does. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you want to build these guys up and get them over the top. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it's different. It's a weird way to go about it, and I feel like we'll have a lot more answers after SummerSlam. But the way that book, like we don't have any matches for Money in the Bank right now, right? There's no
Besides,
Asuka.
so it's well, no, there's nothing confirmed between Asuka and Charlotte yet
Oh, there isn't. Okay.
no, because of Bianca still big in the loop. They kind of left that open ended.
Okay.
Right
All
now,
right. I didn't watch Smack. I worked Friday, so I watched like bits and pieces of TikToks of
there's
SmackDown.
nothing really going on towards Money in the Bank. All they're talking about is the ladder match right now. Which for the men we got what? We got
LA Knight.
Shinsuke,
Yeah.
LA Knight, who else? There's three, right?
Santos Escobar.
Santos, there's four.
Um,
And
Ricochet.
Ricochet. So that's a solid start on the men's side. I like that. Butch is also in there. I like that
Oh, he'd be
Santos is in.
Baron, right? Corbin?
Yeah, I like that Santos is in there. I'm a big LWO/Santos Escobar guy. I liked him down in NXT and Legado del Fantasma. I don't think he's going to win the Money in the Bank, nor should he, but he is going to be very entertaining in that match. And I think they're starting to build the Money in the Bank match itself the way they need to again, like including these super athletic guys that could win realistically because of the style of the match, but like, let's be honest, Butch is not winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. Ricochet is not winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. It seems like it's going to be LA Knight, but this match should be really entertaining. And
Could you imagine if they just threw like nail and everything and like? I mean, I guess Shinsuke, but like Ricochet winning it would be like what? You know what I mean? I love Ricochet. Don't get me wrong. He's one of my favorite like people to watch just because of the way that he moves around the ring and the high flyer aspect of him, right? But you can't see him as a world champion, right?
no, it's not like Big E a couple years ago that we all wanted to be a
Big
world
E was
champion,
a little
but
different.
well, that's what I'm saying. There was no real path for Big E to get there except for Money in the Bank, and we all really wanted that. It's and Liv Morgan's another example. She didn't with how the titles were then. It didn't really look like she had any chance, but Money in the Bank gives that to people. And I'll tell you, on the women's side, I'd like to see Io Sky win that briefcase.
I'm just so confused what they're doing with damage control.
Well, there's storylines inside of this women's match. I think this women's match is going to be way more interesting than the men's because you have Bailey and Io who have last couple weeks have been getting along, but before that they were butting heads about
That's what I'm
going after
saying.
the women's championship. So that's going to be interesting in that match. We also have Zoe Stark and Becky Lynch in that same match.
Oh shit, that's right.
Yeah. So that's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on as well. I don't think Zoe or Becky are winning the Money in the Bank, sadly. I love Becky to death, but I think this is going to be Zoe and Trish screw Becky, and then somehow Zoe just gets beat by somebody. But yeah, I think it's going to be more of that. I think.
A lot of people have wanted to see too because we obviously had that segment. I think it was 2 weeks ago, right? Where it was like everyone came out when Oscar was on Pearson Waller effect,
Yeah.
right? And there was like 10 women who came out and were like, I want to shot the title, I want to shot the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, this is great.
Loving it. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting few weeks headed into Money in the Bank. We still got some more qualifiers coming up too.
How many are there gonna be in each match? Is it 8? Because I thought it was. Am I bugging saying it was 6? In years past or no?
They've done both.
Okay.
There's been 8. There's been 6. I feel like it might only be 6 this year.
But that's weird that they did it to get to 5 and put. I mean, I guess maybe not. Then you have 1 tomorrow.
Well, I think that's what it's going to be. It might end up being like a last chance qualifier kind of thing.
Has there been any matches confirmed for tomorrow night on Raw?
I haven't seen anything, and the preview's not up yet. So
Usually, I was gonna say usually everything kind of comes out tomorrow.
In the morning.
Tomorrow morning.
Point, yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. But we
Oh, I think it was. I'm looking at WWE page right now. Looks like the OC is in there with Sami Zayn when we were talking about KO and Sami Zayn.
Oh yes, the Good Brothers are in there. Yeah, because they are on SmackDown.
Okay, so it's Braun Brute's Pretty Deadly,
SmackDown.
the Good Brothers, and who else?
It's not. It's not. The Street Profits.
Street Profits, right? Yeah, and then randomly Zelina Vega calls out Damage Control. It's like, I know you're just kind of like.
And LA Knight was talking shit about Zelina Vega. It's so weird. WWE is very weird right now, but
Oh,
yeah.
There's one storyline we didn't touch on from Friday Night SmackDown that I think deserves a little bit of light.
Go for it.
AJ Styles and Karrion Kross.
They are trying as hard as they can to make that man relevant.
You don't like him?
I like the idea of him.
I think that he could. I think they booked him poorly. I think he
Yeah.
was like one of the NXT guys that they booked poorly in years past.
Mhm.
But if you have him beat AJ, and then I feel like he could be another dominant guy that you could have go after, like Austin Theory, and have him beat Austin Theory. I wouldn't hate that at all. I just feel like obviously they have to build him back up, but the way that he is in the ring and the type of way that he wrestles, I feel like he has that capability in him. I just feel like he's been kind of given the shit end of the stick since he's been here,
Yeah.
and I don't hate seeing Scarlett every Friday.
I'm a
So.
Scarlett fan, and I was actually gonna say that I think she's more interesting than he is because he adds a whole wrinkle, and I think you take Scarlett away, I don't know that I care about Karrion Kross at all.
Right.
But that thing was cool. The red dust or powder she blew into AJ's face, on Friday. Kind of interesting to see how that goes. Now there's a mixed tag match scheduled for next Friday. Michin, Mia Yim, and AJ
Yeah, I saw
Styles
that.
versus Scarlett and Karrion Kross. U.S. title push for Karrion Kross. I don't hate it. I don't really see, besides Sheamus, who else you push towards the U.S. title over there.
You just have to. That's what I mean, though. It's like, why are you giving Karrion Kross? Because I feel like his promos are really good too. I
They
really
are,
like
yeah.
his promos, and I feel like, why are you pushing him against a guy in AJ Styles if you're just gonna have AJ? Like, what are you gonna have AJ do? Go back for the or? I mean, I guess a lot of people have been saying that AJ could go against Roman and be Roman's next. Um, but is him beating Karrion Kross like right? You know what I mean? It would mean so much more for Karrion Kross to beat AJ Styles than AJ Styles to beat Karrion Kross.
It would mean nothing to AJ Styles at all to be Karrion
Exactly.
Kross. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense why they're building up. And also, I'm looking on WWE right now. It looks like it's going to be five.
Five
Looks like the
teams.
Money in the Bank match is set
Really?
from this article I'm reading. Yeah, that's what this looks like.
5-man ladder match. Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused by it, but they're like who will rise to the occasion? Oh no, okay, never mind.
All right.
Who will rise to the occasion? Because the way that this looks, it's like, oh, this is the title match, or the ladder match. But no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. It says who will rise to the occasion and qualify next for the life-changing Money in the Bank ladder matches. That was at the end of the article.
Okay. Yeah. So
Because I was like five, it would have been weird.
that would have been weird. I don't know how I would have liked the flow of the match. It probably would have sucked. Yeah, in a match like that, you need more guys because you want it to be as fast paced as possible, and you need to give guys a minute to catch their breaths and collect themselves and stuff. I think there is a large magnifying glass, maybe unfairly, on the women's Money in the Bank ladder match because I don't know if you watched it last year. Not good. Women's Money in the
Last
Bank
year's?
ladder match, not good. Few
No,
botches.
I didn't watch
not,
it last year.
not pretty. Quite a few botches. Nothing crazy, but there was definitely a few moments where I was like, that's kind of bad, and it looked ugly.
Because I feel like I've went back and watched majority of the pay-per-views over the last year, but maybe Money in the Bank. Who was the
Live.
Wait, was last year Cena and when Cena came back, or is that 2 years ago?
Cena came back at Money in the. No, it was 2 years ago.
That was 2 years ago. Okay, who was last year? Was there even a title defense for Roman?
I don't. There might not have been
Yeah, I'll have to go back.
because on the poster, I think it was Seth and Becky. On the poster, I don't think Roman had anything to do with it.
Okay.
But Money in the Bank is one of those ones where like the world title doesn't necessarily need to be there. They tend to want to make that Money in the Bank match the focal point, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. It seems like everybody on the men's side, everybody's yelling L.A. Knight, yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited for Money in the Bank. I've always been a huge Money in the Bank fan ever since Edge freaking broke my heart in 2006. That son of a bitch. John Cena wins the Elimination Chamber and Edge comes swooping in, fresh as a daisy.
That was in Albany, right?
Yes, it was. And Teddy didn't go to it because it was a Raw pay-per-view, and he was a SmackDown fan.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
imagine that. Oh, I'd
that's
be
one
sick.
that's one thing too. It's like I don't know. The money in the bank, I just miss it being at WrestleMania. It just felt so much better.
I agree.
Um I
We'll
think that
never
they could
get a
easily.
moment like Seth Rollins ever again. Think about that. Wait,
Oh
no, no,
shit.
no, no. He had the contract that night because he had a match
Yeah,
against
yeah,
Orton earlier.
yeah. Then he lost in the opening match, right? And
Yeah,
then came back at the end of the night and
yeah. He
won.
got RKO'd off a stomp, which was
Yes, that's what it
nuts.
was. That was
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. But no,
What an insane night for him though, to get that as like
a moment as
just
something
something,
never people never forget, and then have the
and then
greatest
another,
passion of all time. Ugh, the
yeah,
heist of the
yeah,
century.
like, yeah. I don't know if it's your influence on me, and Teddy might not like the fact that I'm saying this as well, but Seth is definitely my favorite guy in WWE right now,
I said it to him,
by
dude.
far,
I was like,
by far.
I think you're in an underwhelming minority here, dude. Like, Seth Rollins, like, I get it. Roman's the guy. He's the biggest draw in the company right now. And Cody and Seth are interchangeable 2-3, depending on the week. But with Cody, how Cody's rolling right now, Seth is that freaking guy right now, man. And he wouldn't even give me this. They serenaded him for 11 minutes at a live show in Paris. 11 minutes of just singing his song. I get bored after a couple, and they
Yeah,
just kept going. Like, that's how much they love this guy. And, like, we have been waiting for so long for a champion we can frickin' root for as a fan base. We finally get it, and Teddy doesn't want anything to do with him.
I can I get it though. I do. I see his side of it, just to the fact that there's other guys as well that you want to see at the top, and obviously with the way that they integrated the title and everything like that, it's like you feel like Seth deserves to be, like, right now. I think Roman obviously being the top guy is fine.
Yeah.
We just want to see him every week. Like, we just want him to be there, even if he's not fighting every week. Like, when's the last time Roman had a match on SmackDown or Raw? Was that John Cena and KO versus Roman and Sammy?
I think it
Like,
was.
genuinely,
I think it
is
was.
that the last one?
I think it
Which was
might have
what,
been.
fucking February?
No, it was not February, right? It was December 31st because John Cena had to get the match in order to have wrestled one match every year for 20 years.
No shit.
Yeah. That was the whole deal. They did it on the 31st so John Cena could reach that benchmark. That was the whole.
No, that it couldn't have been.
I
When was the Rumble? Oh no, I'm bugging because then that led up to KO
Yeah.
facing Roman at the Rumble. And, okay, yes,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yep.
Fair.
But yeah, he hasn't had a match on SmackDown or Raw since then.
Since 6 months,
Yeah.
and he's defended his title at Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania, and and he didn't even defend his
He
title.
challenged for a title.
Challenged for different titles when he was the champion at Night of Like,
Yeah.
I get he has this deal and this gimmick, but at the same time, I love seeing a fighting champion. There's nothing else.
Right.
We needed one, and Seth, if not like Cody would have been, I feel like, too.
Yes, Cody is a champion we could have got behind, but he is so. There's this invisible string tied between him and Roman, and nobody wants to cut it, and you should not,
Yeah, it
because
just sucks that
otherwise,
the
what's
only
the
way.
point?
Yeah, the only way that we're going to get it, though, the problem is through Royal Rumble again, and that's the only way we're going to see it. So it just didn't make sense for them to do the brand split in the middle of all of this and say, "Hey, guess what? Roman's going over to SmackDown, and he's going to take his titles with him, and then keep Cody on Raw and have him go for a title that's less of a thing or less, of a pedigree
Yeah,
compared to what Roman's doing." So there's been some questionable decisions, but for people who don't know me, I watched WWE for, I mean, really, like, probably the main time I watched it was like 2007. till like 2000, probably 12, where I was watching every week, trying to watch as many. And this is back when you had to buy every single pay per view that was coming out, which wasn't fun. I still remember for Jeff Hardy winning his title at Armageddon 2009. I I went behind my parents' back and bought that pay per view
Yes.
and got some shit for it. But I was like, I don't give a fuck. I watched Jeff Hardy, my favorite wrestler
All
of all
time.
time, win the title, and that was pretty cool. Which I'm
See,
pretty sure that pay per view also had Hornswoggle versus the Great Khali.
I wouldn't be surprised. That was the ebbs and flows of WWE at
Yeah.
that time. But let's really quick. Let's wrap up the show with that kind of stuff. So it's stuff like that, right? That makes wrestling so cool and fandom so cool. It was like, sorry, mom and dad. Sorry, I charged your credit card for $70, but I had to see Jeff Hardy to see if he was going to win this triple threat against two guys I really don't like, Triple H and Edge at the time. Like,
Yeah.
it was one of those things. Like, as a kid, it's like that's how
Dude, I was
big
Jeff
and
Hardy for
important it was.
Halloween one year. I was Jeff Hardy for Halloween when
Yeah.
I was like 9.
Dude, that's like, and that's how Teddy and I started this podcast. The very first episode, we talked about how we got into wrestling and our fandom. And when I have people on here, I like to ask them about that kind of stuff. And I like that you brought it up without me even asking.
I didn't even know that. It's just because I didn't watch WWE from 2013 till when we went to the pay per view before War Games of Monday Night Raw, and ever since then, what's that? It's been
That was November
of
20,
this past year.
22.
Yeah, so I've only been really back in the loop, but I've went back now, and I've been pretty much caught up with after COVID WWE, as I would say. You know what I mean? So I haven't been around for all the storylines and all of the changes going into AW, and but I've been trying to watch as much as I possibly can, and I've been enjoying it a lot more than I remember it when I was a kid, because I felt like when I was a kid and I was younger, it was DX, it was the Hardys, it was Triple H, and it was Randy Orton. And then like you said, like you talked about earlier, with Vince not being able to build all these other guys up, like I don't know if Triple H just saw the talent that was there, and Vince like pushing it into the ground and was like, I'm not gonna do that. And then was like, because we have guys, like Otis and Chad Gable, Alpha Academy.
Thank you.
So there's so much fun, and then even bringing like those guys out to and KO on the mic with Sammy, it's no, it's a really fun time, and I even see people our age getting back into it, and with these storylines and the way that Triple H has been running it, um, it's been a hell of a time.
Well, now it's starting to become more of a mainstream thing again. Roman is on late night talk shows all the time. Seth Rollins has been on a few shows here and there. Not since he's been champion, but over the past couple of years. It's starting to make its relevancy again. Roman Reigns was in one of the Fast and Furious movies.
Stephen A interviewed Becky Lynch.
Yeah, Ariel Helwani, who is a massive and very, very well-known MMA writer, is doing WWE interviews. It's very interesting, and it's a very fun time to be a fan right now. And one of my favorite things is watching adults stop caring about being into wrestling and just saying fuck it and enjoying the ride. When they're like, because we all hear it, right? Oh, why do you watch it? It's fake. It's like, yeah, no shit, but it's fun. The stories are
not fake. It's choreographed.
Right. It's like, that's one of the dumbest things you can see. Like, it's not fake. It's about as fake as every TV show you watch. Like, they're still doing this shit.
Yeah, but there's still obviously shit on there that you can't fake. Like, I mean, the match of who was it? Dragunov versus
Gunther.
What?
Gunther or Walter?
No. At the last pay per view of NXT.
Oh, Dijak.
Who did he? Dijak, dude. Like some of that shit you can't fake.
No, that coast to coast drop kicking steel steps into someone's face, that's not fake. You get hit by steel steps.
25 kendo sticks to your body, like that's still gonna hurt and leave welts on your body.
People want Dragunov to come to the main roster and challenge Gunther. And I don't know if the main roster's ready for that level of brutality. If you haven't
plot twist, put Dragunov in Imperium.
People have been saying that too, that they would like that. Um, Dude, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a 45-minute match. You're probably not going to watch the whole thing. Ilya Dragunov versus Walter for the NXT UK Championship. Oh my God. You want to talk about brutal? No weapons. Just two men beating the absolute living piss out of each other for almost an hour.
What pay per view was it?
It was NXT UK. I don't know that it was a pay-per-view, but it was NXT
Oh,
UK.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to see if it's on. I'll see if it's on Peacock.
It is
Or...
on the. I'm sure, pretty sure it is on the network. But one last thing before we wrap up here. How did you start getting into wrestling? Like when you were a kid, what got you into it? How did you start watching?
So actually, ironically enough, I think the first thing I ever watched, like without anyone saying anything to me, was I was like scrolling through TV one night and I was bored as hell, and it was a Thursday, so I don't know if you know where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
It was TNA Impact. Was I think the first show that I actually watched. And then I kind of said it to my friends. I was like, yo, this wrestling stuff, it's crazy. Like, these dudes are just rocking each other in the face and get right back up. And my friend comes over and he goes, dude, it's fucking fake. I'm like, what?
You're fake.
They get shocked the hell out of me. And I was like, still, I don't care. I was like, it's so much fun. And then I actually had two of my other friends who were just some of my best friends growing up. And they had that, I don't know if you remember it, that DX, like DVD.
Yes.
That is like I mean I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched that story and that disc a million times, and then a week after that I was watching a couple weeks after that I was watching, you know, Kurt Angle and Earl and AJ Styles and
Kurt
Abyss.
Angle.
Do you know who Abyss is?
Yes, I know Abyss. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. So that was kind of the time that I was watching. I'm trying to think. Jeff Jarrett was there. I think Christian was there for a little bit.
Double J.
Yeah, Jarrett was like still wrestling a good amount at that time. I know he still wrestles now, but like
He's
every
still
single week
going.
like,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
going for titles and shit.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? But that was mainly the way I got into it, and then I kind of faltered into obviously seeing the Hardy Boys, watching those WrestleMania ladder matches on YouTube, and that was just kind of where I fell in love with it. It was like just the crazy, death-defying stunts, and then I just remember sitting at my house watching, you know, Jeff do the Swanton Bomb on Randy on like the plywood, and I was literally sitting there, and I'm like, he's fucking dead.
This
Jeff
man is
fucking
not alive.
dead.
Oh.
Like I was like, what is like what am I watching right now? And yeah, even the old Survivor series where it was actually good, you know, 5v5 matches and shit like that, where they built up these storylines and before it started to take that downturn,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was some pretty insane matches. Like if you go back and watch probably like 2007 to probably like 2010, 2012 ish Survivor Series pay per views. So yeah, it's just I don't really know why I got out of it. I think I was just playing a lot of sports, and you kind of get to that age where you're like, oh, it's not cool anymore, so I'm gonna stop doing it. And then you
Yeah.
get back, and you're like, I don't give a fuck what people think.
Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy myself. It makes me feel something. Like that's one thing like that made me gravitate towards wrestling so hard. Is it made me feel something right away. There was a good guy, there was a bad guy, and some of my favorite wrestlers of all time now are people I could not stand the sight of as a child. Edge, Randy Orton, and
Yeah.
Triple H at times. In 2009, you could have asked me who my most hated person in the world was. Randy Orton.
Randy Orton.
He kicked
By
John
far.
Cena's dad's head in, and I wanted to physically assault my television. I was so upset. Me at 14 years old, you know, at 14 you're starting to learn how to really curse, really use these words. I was going at, fuck you, you fucking this, that. I can't believe you did that. He's an old man. That's John Cena's mother. You son of a what the fuck. I was losing my mind. And it's like, do these guys know that stuff was happening beforehand? Yeah. Could I tell at that time? No. I thought Randy Orton hated John Cena so much he needed to kick his father in the head to prove a point. After he beat the shit out of Cena.
Yeah, and I thought Triple H went to Randy Orton's house with a fucking sledgehammer.
Yeah, well, he actually, yeah, just for no reason. It was just like, knock, knock.
Well, I said, oh, it was his actual house. And,
It was.
I mean, it was his actual house?
Yeah, Edge also went to John Cena's childhood home. That was real. Yeah.
Dude, what?
Yeah. It was in Missouri.
That's insane. I didn't know that was like his actual house because obviously, you would think that they would have just done like a stage.
They go through and like they replace the window
Fucking
pane.
setup though.
Yeah. They go balls to the wall with that stuff. Especially back then, I felt like they went the extra mile to try to make that stuff feel more real.
Well, Triple H just absolutely demolished that house.
Oh yeah.
The guy broke down the door.
It was awesome, dude. And then what was another one? Even more recently when Seth Rollins broke into Edge's house. That was fun.
I don't think I've seen that.
Really? Okay, so Edge and Seth were going back and forth, and Edge and them weren't home, but like Seth was in their house and was like sitting on his furniture, taking a video, talking shit to Edge, like basically saying, "Hey, I'm in your house. I can do whatever I want. The fuck are you gonna do about it? You're on Monday Night Raw." So it's cool, and it's like it's the emotion and the how it makes you feel things. These stories are really good, and the best guys are the ones that make you feel something. And the more you grow up, the more you appreciate those guys. You know, it's just super fun.
Funny to see that too. The guys that you hated, not even just obviously the mainstream guys, but like certain pops that you heard at like the Rumble for guys that were literally just hated throughout their whole career, like Kali.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like people started to love him towards the end of his career. And
the Punjabi Playboy.
Yeah, you know what I mean. They made funny stories out of those guys, like Mark Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Henry was, you know what I mean. Kane obviously had a storied career. He was always felt like he was always pretty much liked, obviously, unless he was a heel.
Except for when he first started, and then there's just so many guys like that are just so freaking good, man. What's another one? MVP was a really good heel. Here's a name a lot of people forget because it was one of those the brightest flames burn the fastest. Mr. Kennedy was a great heel. Oh my God. He came out of nowhere when he debuted, started challenging The Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship, and looked really freaking good.
I hated him.
Oh my God, yeah.
I hated him, but he was really, really good at being a heel as well. I don't know why. Oh, because you just brought up MVP. Fuck is Omos then?
Omos has been Omosing.
Have we seen him since Backlash?
No. It seems to me that people really like
the whole WWE free agents thing. Just doesn't make sense.
It's we don't know what to do with you, but we're gonna need you to work, so you're gonna go where we tell you, kind of deal.
Well, like, and then you send Corbin down to NXT.
Ali too.
Ali went down too.
Yeah, they were on the same show. Yeah.
No shit. And then I know that obviously Corbin went after Carmelo Hayes, and then you bring him back up and you put him on a Money in the Bank qualifier match. Have him lose.
And then he gets shit on by Cameron Grimes backstage after. This poor fucking guy.
Like, dude. Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm actually, maybe they're just trying to do that to the point where, like, we actually start to feel emotion for this dude and feel bad for this fucking guy.
I guess.
The only thing that I can possibly think of is that we're pushing Baron Corbin to his absolute limits till he actually explodes and has, like, a promo that he's, like, leaving the WWE or something, and then someone comes out and it's like, we need you.
It's really bad though because I thought his situation with JBL was perfect. I thought that would have been his spot, but he just couldn't thrive in that spot either.
Yeah, like I said, like people said too, a lot of people said that he should have a while ago went back to heel and went to back to his like old
the Lone Wolf.
Yeah, the Lone Wolf.
Yeah.
Joined up with Judgment Day. Built him back up that way, like him and Priest being like
Yeah,
the
and
Twin Towers of it or something like that. You know what I mean?
now you have JD McDonough, or Finn Balor was lurking around when JD McDonough was giving an
Well,
interview a few
and he
weeks
wasn't
ago.
there last Monday, right?
Yeah, and we haven't seen. That's another guy. Like you see him, you're like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. Can't wait to see more. He's gone for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, he was there for when we were there.
Yeah, that was the night Finn was lurking.
No,
Was that next
that
week?
was a week before. That was a week before.
Was it?
Yeah, because then that set up the match with Dolph Ziggler and him.
Oh,
And then
that's
he
right.
beat the piss out of Dolph Ziggler
Yeah,
and
yeah,
didn't win the match and got disqualified.
I
And then
remember
since
that.
then, there's been no backstory on it. There's been no cuts. Like,
Yeah, I
nothing.
remember thinking that was so cool. I remember
That's what I'm saying.
specifically saying, I like that he didn't win but beat the fuck out of Ziggler. I love that.
Yeah, it was just to what I said way earlier in the podcast. Like sometimes there's either these really, really, really good storylines, or, and I'm not saying these other ones are bad, but like there's times where it's like you're picking stuff out of the air, putting it back into place, and then it goes away for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden it's back to exactly what it was. Like nothing even remotely happened. So
It's
that's the one
weird.
thing I think that they just need to kind of get more consistent with um, in WWE right now. Otherwise, it's fun to watch. I clear my schedule every fucking Monday night to watch, and obviously I work Fridays, but
You do what you can. Listen, man, it's an
I do what I
exciting
can.
time to be a fan. I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Ray, I appreciate you so much for coming on, man. It was a lot of fun getting to talk. Get this conversation off the text and get
Yeah,
to talking about it. Would love to have you on again at some point. Get Teddy on here. Get the three of us. Get it
100%.
all stirred up. Get the bee's nest going. You know how it is. Thanks, you guys, so much for hanging out. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll catch y'all next week.